You are now listening to Out of the Blank.
Welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Andy Imhof. How am I saying that?
Imhof.
Imhof. Okay. Now, is that German? What is that?
Swiss.
Oh, it's Swiss. You're one of those beautiful people.
I don't know about beautiful, but I'm a blend.
Anything out of Sweden is beautiful. Those people look like models everywhere you walk.
Ooh, my friend, you're thinking of Sweden. I'm Swiss, half Swiss, actually. So I've got this weird blend of like German, French, Spanish, and then the other half of me is pure American mutt. I can't prove it because my grandfather never had a social security number, driver's license, or anything like that. But I'm like 1/16th Chemawa Indian or something like that. And I'm a weird blend, dude.
Dude, you're a mix. I think my genes, I'm a combination of all the countries that hate each other, like English, German, Irish. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, perfect.
I'm an individual, which makes us all interesting, man. And like I said, this is a conversation between me and you. So whatever you want to talk about, we can talk about. First of all, I appreciate you coming on to the podcast, especially at the drop of a hat, just even connecting through Messenger in this way. But so what do you do for a living?
So it's kind of a weird story, man. I was an industrial designer up until about 7 or 8 months ago. And I'd started my own podcast. I'd actually started 2 podcasts because the one became successful. It was called Boost, Booze, and Barbecue. And we had to split the food component off. And so right now I'm doing a show called Pardon My Fork. And then we're starting a third show called Barrel Aged Podcast here real soon. And, just some life stuff happened. I lost my job. I started taking the podcast in a whole different direction. I started doing production for other people. I started doing narrations and voice commercials. And, it just kind of took off from there. And so now, I guess you could say my day job is working on our old fixer-upper house. But in between that, I'm doing my own show, which is syndicated and sponsored. And I'm creating commercials for people, and I'm helping other people make their own podcasts better.
Yeah, this is what you're doing here today by giving me your little story. You're telling me the story right now of Andy Imhof. It's probably going to take me a couple times to pronounce that correctly. But you're telling me a story here, man. Does your podcast and these types of things that you're interested in, they all focus around the same type of thing, kind of food, barbecue, and then boost?
Yeah, so my first show was mostly car talk, but then we'd sprinkle in some barbecue and some drinking stuff. And that was a really really received show. I had a real hard time hanging on to a co-host is the problem. And when you're doing a variety show like that, you can't really do it by yourself. So I had to kind of give that up. I want to get it back up and going. It's the strangest thing. We still get like 16 downloads a day, even though we haven't made an episode in, gosh, what's it been, 7, 8 months, something like that. But, I'm having a lot of fun with Pardon My Fork. That one's going real well. I'm looking forward to Barrel Age Podcast. Anybody that knows their booze is going to recognize names like Four Roses or Clyde Mays or Ardbeg Scotch. We got local people that are on some different distilleries from around where I'm at. I live in the Willamette Valley, and so this is a hotbed of beer, wine. We're like the next Sonoma County.
Where exactly are you from?
The Willamette Valley in Oregon.
Oh, man, dude. All right, so tell me a little bit about Oregon, man. So you're saying you're like all about wine valleys. So is that common? You guys have a lot of wineries and these types of things?
Yeah, we've got tons of wineries, tons of breweries, tons of distilleries. Here's the thing. Regionally, you can't make the same wines as somewhere else, okay? So, like, we're never going to make exactly the same wines that come out of California, right?
Yeah.
But we do have the right climate for certain types of wines. So, we'll never make, like, I don't know, Merlots like they make in California. But we make a much better Pinot Noir, in my opinion. And, you know, you travel up into Washington and you start getting into some of those deeper, darker reds that like a cooler climate. So it's all dependent on climate, basically. You know, you look at Italy, for example. Italy is long, right? You think about the boot shape, and it has a lot of different climates all the way across. Same with France. So you can't expect, I don't know, the same wines to come out of the same regions, I guess you might say. And
It's
so
all
it varies by state as well.
Yeah, it all varies by country. Like if you look at a popular place or state, let's say like Oregon or something, it's not super hot there most of the time. So it wouldn't be like Arizona. Trying to grow wine in Arizona is probably the hardest thing in the world, just because that's not where it's the sustainable thing is for it. And anything that comes out of that's wine related. That if someone has a winery down there, there might be someone out there, but it's going to be a hell of a lot different than, you know, experiencing a wine from Oregon or some other place that is highly developed. Like the same reason why in France, their pasta is or not France, Italy, their pasta is completely different from the pasta we have here. You can eat that pasta there and not feel like you want to take a nap or hate yourself afterwards. You can eat that, and they eat it all, they eat it all the time. And then they come over here and they have pasta from here and they're like, this is completely different. I don't like this. This feels sugary. It doesn't feel pure. And that's just because of how they grow their ingredients and how they choose to make their pasta and stuff is a lot different from them what we're used to or exposed to. And I think that's what's interesting about people, which is like a lot of reason why I started podcasting is like we all have something interesting about us. You know what I mean? We all got a story to tell. And you're, like I said before, you're telling me the story of Andy. And we all have dreams, passions, and goals we want to pursue, and I want to know, like, what's your thoughts on the world? What's everything? This conversation is not limited to an hour. It's out there for as long as we want to talk, as long as we feel like we can talk and really come to the conclusions of things. Because I figure out that with better understanding of people, you get a better understanding of the world, and you also realize that there's a reason why some people are just depressed and some people are just angry all the time. And I want to get down to the root cause of that. I want to understand people more because understanding is everything.
Man, I don't know if you'll ever understand quite to that extent. I mean, I hear you, brother. I want to understand it like you, but
there's no way in the world I'm going to be able to podcast with everyone like I want to. There's no way in the world. But as much as I possibly can with every amount of time I have possibly free, I'd love to do it just because I'm interested in what other people are interested in. I like hearing what my friends want to do down the road. I like hearing, you have this Pardon My Fork podcast or this Booze Barbecue podcast that might not be working on a whole lot now, but at the same time, it's not something that's out of your like reach or out of your world anymore. It's just something that you put on hold maybe. And so do you focus with these podcasts? Do you try? I see Pardon My Fork, you do interviews with many chefs and stuff like that. Like I'm reading one right now. I think one of your most recent posts, July 26th, was this lady that was an autistic chef. And that's amazing. I mean, there are people out here that are truly, they're evidence of people but getting the ball rolling or getting the motivation to get out and do something they enjoy.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, man, because seriously, you can do, I don't know anything. It's really bizarre. By the way, do you have headphones in?
Yeah.
I'm hearing so much bleed through. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I am too. I don't know what that is.
Okay. Well, it's better now. Oh, nope. we're right back to where we were. Okay. Well,
Is that better?
I don't know. Let me talk for a minute and see if anything comes through. Nope, not better at all.
How about now?
Let's see. 1, 2, 3, ABC. Yeah, can't hear it now.
All right.
What'd you change?
I just turned the volume down a little bit. Apparently it was too
I got to
loud.
get you some of those. I got to get you some of those closed back headphones like the ones I'm wearing.
Oh yeah, this is what happens when you buy Sony. You get a product that is loud and it's kind of mean to others, but we love it anyway.
That's right. That's right. Well, yeah, that autistic chef, man, she really was proving just if you put your mind to something, how much you can accomplish. And I think there's a certain level of, I don't know, self-actualization that happens. I don't really buy into that whole thing on like a cosmic level, but there is definitely something to be said about, you look at Kanye West, for example. Yeah, I mean, he was an okay rapper. He had some songs that you could, tap your feet to. But as far as he's gone, it's just because he walks around all day, every day saying, I'm the best, I'm the greatest, bow to me, kiss my toes, you ain't got nothing on me, I'm the Yeezy, like blah, 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 blah. And obviously it gets grating now, but there are certain people where when you're around them, you just almost feel that energy coming off of them. And you're going, wow, this guy really knows what he's doing or knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, I definitely think sometimes people do it as an act too, to kind of seek out attention and bring more drive to what they're going to. Kind of like a business ploy. I definitely think, like, if you want to get political, but Donald Trump does that a little bit. I'm not into politics at all, but with like tweeting and then people always commenting and saying something he did crazy in the news or something. I'm like, I feel like he does a lot of that also for the act of them just talking about him and getting his name out there. It seems like a giant business ploy that way. But that's common with people. It seems like everybody's looking for attention in some ways. I'm at fault for it too, man. I'll put up a 6-pack photo on Facebook and Instagram, and it's not because I'm trying to show off or anything. But basically I'm looking for that like, I'm looking for that comment, I'm looking for what that acceptance is of what that need I need to fulfill. And that's not. I mean, we're all at fault with whatever it is, whether it's a 6-pack or whether it's putting up something you created or whether it's just writing a post to write a post and getting a bunch of people like that. We all feel like we need a sense of accomplishment in the world or sense of acceptance. And I think that's just the reason why behind that is because we just kind of focus on too much of what other people think and care about other people's opinions. I don't think anybody really does anything, or there's very few people out there that really truly do something because they want to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I hear you. I have a thing that I do where I'll just get in too much stuff. If I'm focusing on one task, it's hard for me to get in over my head, but it's when I'm trying to juggle 4 or 5 things at a time. And fortunately, I have a lovely wife that's able to say to me, hey, you've got way too many things going on right now. And sometimes I hear it and sometimes I don't. I always want to be able to hear it when she says it because she's right. And, sometimes, I don't know, I will just get too deep into stuff. I'm trying to do too many things, and it's not even for the Instagrams or anything like that. I'm terrible with social media. I wish that I don't know, was independently wealthy so that I could just hire somebody to handle all my social media. But, like you were saying, you are doing it for the clicks or the likes or whatever. I'll do stuff just because, I don't know, my brain is going a mile a minute and I'll get too soaked into other things, involved in other things. And having that focus is really what's important, because when we were talking about those people that kind of seem to self-actualize, the key component that you're missing is that they're doing the work behind the scenes as well. So I have no idea what kind of work, quote unquote, like Kanye was doing, but obviously he was doing some kind of work because it gave him results, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same way with just about anybody else, whether you look at them as a hero or a villain. If they are I don't know, at some kind of a station in life that's way above where you are. You're looking at them. Well, there's two types of people. You can look at Bill Gates and think, wow, that is what someone can accomplish if they really put their mind to it and they do what they need to do. Or you can look at them and go, well, they must be evil because they have all this money.
No, but
But either way you slice
yeah,
it.
well, any way you want to take a look at that and take your perspective from it. But, the way he explains it is that, like, he has the ability, the time, the effort, and energy to keep going and producing as much as he possibly can to make as much as he possibly can. And people look at that like he's just money hungry. Well, that's not what his is. Actually, a lot of his money just goes back into charity in these types of situations. And even when he dies, he says he's only giving his kids a small portion of his money. He's not going to leave them with all his money. He's going to donate most of it. And the whole factor is it's just a man that enjoys creating and inventing and doing stuff to better society, or whatever you want to look at it, if you want to look at it hurting society. But it's a way of a man trying to get what he enjoys doing out there to the world. And it's a lot like what I believe people have a willingness and a wantingness to help, but I believe we just choose the easiest option and choose to do just stuff that's in benefit to ourselves. And kind of, if anybody's not in our line of following or anything, we feel like we need to put them down in a way. I've experienced too many times walking around in the world today. I don't know if it is from where you're from, but too many people are always looking to judge other people. I mean, I'm at fault for doing it too. We constantly have those thoughts that go through our head, like, why does he have that? Why does he have this? But it's a giant freaking dick comparison, man. We're constantly just trying to pull out the ruler and see whose is bigger. It's like, why does it matter what they have and what you don't have? Why can't you just look at things like that's person living a life? We have experiences and things, and it's all about better understanding. Like, I'm jealous of you 100% because I'm seeing all this wonderful food, and I'm guessing you're a giant consumer of barbecue.
Yes, and a giant producer.
Okay.
Ask any of my friends.
I am so jealous of you in that, because I do enjoy barbecue, but I cannot process red meat at all well. If I eat red meat, I'm not going to the bathroom for like 6 days. And it sucks, but at the same time, that's my little thing I have. But it's cool to see other people be interested in some things. Like, I'm staring right now at this thing that is literally making me think of the image of diarrhea. Not because it looks bad, but because that's what it would do to me. And I'm looking at it, and it's like this barbecue sandwich with fries all around it. And I'm like, oh my God, all I'm thinking is calories, calories, calories. And the next thing I know, like, there's people out there that just truly don't give a shit. And it also enjoy good food. I mean, what's anything creative? I've podcasted with chefs who truly are like Gordon Ramsays, basically, not in the aspect that they're just like yelling and outlandish and stuff, but the fact that they truly care about a craft. They truly care about the process that goes into it, whether it's making the food, but they realize it's an act. It's a performance. They're doing it. They're creating a meal that has to look appetizing and also be appetizing. They have to make sure everything's done right when it comes to sanitation, when it comes to all these different aspects of food. I mean, hell, there's nothing better than a good barbecue. I can tell you right now, there is a barbecue about maybe 20 minutes away from me. It's run by an all-black family, and every time I go there, I experience the best service ever. It's just a small little family, like little restaurant side business, and I go there and like, come over here, sweetie, why don't you get yourself some? And they load up my plate. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, nah, we're gonna feed you. You're a mama's house. I'm like, thank you. Like, it's awesome to know that there's people out there that are doing these small things, and they don't want a giant big business thing. They just want to be able to help out their local community in these ways. And I think those nameless voices that go unrecognized are people that are definitely have an experience to share to the world. I realize at the age of 21, like, everyone's got a story to tell. Everyone's got a passion. Everyone's got an interest. I want to find out what everyone's is. I want to find out what you want to do with the rest of your life. I want to tell me, Andy, what is it? What do you want to do? Like, in the ending of your long run thing, the one thing that's going to make you happier than anything in the world. And if you have to think about it, that's fine. It's a loaded question, because truly, nobody in the world, I think, really knows what they want. You know what I mean? We're all be willing, like, oh, that'd be cool. Oh, that'd be cool to have a Ferrari. Yeah, I would love to have a 1969 Chevy Impala, or I'd love to have a 1969 Pontiac Judge. I'd love to have those types of cars, but I don't have the money. I don't have the capability of getting one. So I'm not worried about that right now. If I choose to, end up getting somewhere down the road, that's fine. But what I want to find out is I have a passion to talk to people and find their interest. My whole family is in radio broadcasting. My whole family are musicians. Everyone down the line is doing these types of things. And I felt like I didn't belong. And then at one point I was just like, wait a minute. I don't have a passion for music. I have a passion for talking and being able to have conversations with people. I might not be the best at it. I just find that everyone's just interesting in their own way. Whether you're a Jehovah's Witness condemning someone, which is just a personal experience I had. I got into a little bit of an argument with a couple of them that they were trying to condemn someone for not believing in Christ, or they're going to go to hell. And I just wanted to sit there and be like, what happened? What happened? Why are we doing this? Why are you judging him? And they're like, because he's wrong. I'm like, is he wrong, or he just has another interpretation of the world? You got to take the time to understand people. And after talking to him for 45 minutes, he's like, yeah, well, I'm just trying to get, the word out there so people don't go to hell. I'm like, I understand, but don't persecute anybody for it. If you enjoy barbecue, but don't be the vegan in front of the restaurants and they're going, you're killing animals. Meat is murder. I'm like, buddy, hey, just because you don't want to eat meat doesn't mean, that guy over there doesn't want to enjoy that awesome ass freaking half a cow he has on his plate. Like, it looks delicious. And I just think we all got something that interests us. And like I said, leading back to the question, I was trying to kind of tangent there just to kind of give you a little bit of time to think about what you want to do with your life.
Yeah. Well, going back to what I said before, I have so many things that I want to do that it's a little hard for me to narrow down. So in order to start doing the podcasting thing and build my studio, I actually parted out a race car, and I would really like to get back to doing that sort of thing. I loved racing. I love cars. My nephew's car started leaking oil like crazy out of the blue, and I started looking around, and under his hood, and I said, I'm pretty sure it's your oil pump. I think that we should just do a full, timing belt and water pump, oil pump, all that stuff. And the oil pan has to come off when you're doing the oil pump. It's a Ford Festiva, so all the pieces come off of the car, and I don't even know how he feels about the Ford Festiva. I was the one that kind of talked him into getting it, but it's because he's 18 and he's never really had any hands-on experience in the world. And I really wanted him to have something that he not necessarily had to work on, but could work on. And that's a very easy car to work on. And so we did the whole thing. We spent, 3 or 4 days, doing the whole deal. And then he took it on like a 1,000-mile road trip, and everything ran fine. And stuff like that gives me a lot of satisfaction. So I would like to get back to where I can work on stuff like that. But more than anything, dude, my goal is to just build my own company. That really is it. And it's not, I hate to say that it's not anything super specific, because it could be what I'm doing here, but I've just always had this drive that says I need to be self-employed. I've done the cubicle life, and it's fine. It's a good paycheck, but you're being limited. You're always being held down by that bureaucracy. And I don't mean that people shouldn't go to work. I don't mean like you shouldn't get a desk job or whatever. I just mean I'm stuck somewhere in between, being an entrepreneur and being a desk jockey. I kind of felt like I needed to take the plunge. I needed to pull myself out of that situation and do something different. And so right now, and that's another thing about you asking that, what do you want to be when you grow up? I think we really are living in a time where we're not going to be one thing when we grow up. You could have 4 different careers across your lifetime. We're living longer. Our access to information is so much better and higher. And it's something that I've tried to tell teenagers here in the last couple of years. You are going to do something right now. Maybe you'll do it for 2 years, 3 years. Maybe you'll do it for 10 years. Maybe you'll do it for the rest of your life. But the days of getting that job at the mill when you were 16 and working there until you were 67 and retiring, those days are few and far between now. That just does not happen at the same scale. Instead of being the norm, it is now the rarity. More often than not, people will have a job for a couple, 3 or 4 years while they're in high school or college, and then people will, get some other career, and they'll do that for 5 or 10 years, and then they'll get some other career. And that's just kind of the way it goes these days. And it really is not something that was happening until kind of the advent of the internet. You can go on YouTube, and if you're diligent about it and you're working through it, there's enough stuff on YouTube to get you a master's degree in accounting. I mean, you won't have the degree, but you'll have all of the information.
Yeah,
you know?
we're in a world of information.
It's crazy.
Everything's processed online. Everything is, everything's open resource. You have all this. You have access to literally unlimited knowledge at your fingertips, and
I'll tell you, that's the reason why I was having a hard time answering your question, because it's like, I don't really know what exactly, I mean, do I have my pie in the sky if I had endless amounts of money? Sure, I have that kind of thing, but like, what am I actually going to be doing to make a living that I enjoy? I enjoy this. I enjoy doing this right now. If I could get back to making metal art, I would definitely do that in a heartbeat. If I could make money as a race car driver, I would do those things. But realistically, like, where do I see myself in 10 years? I see myself doing a whole lot of this because I think that this is a new media outlet that people are really going to gravitate towards. I told someone recently, I think something like, and the stupid thing about these polls that they do, they're only polling 100 people, 1,000 people, and then they try to make a national average out of that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work. I mean, it's silly. Statistics are statistically wrong. That's the only thing that statistics really get right. But I'm just saying,
true.
They say,
it's true. Okay, hold on. When you talk about what works for somebody and what doesn't work for somebody, you're into barbecue. I'm not. We have 2 different things. That's not going to stop me from affecting what you want to do, whether it's with barbecue or not. If you want to be the owner of a business, some people, like you were saying, going back to what you were saying about the desk job thing, you don't know if that's the right choice, or you don't know if doing your own thing, being an entrepreneur, is the type choice. Who's to say the desk job's for everyone? It's not for everyone. I know people that would hate to be in an office all day. I know people that just want to be outside 24/7. Obviously there's going to be some person that enjoys the desk job, enjoys the inside life with the AC and that luxury. But there are people that's not fit for them. They rather be out in the heat and do work with their hands or have a new job every single day. And I think it's really hard, like you were saying, it is a loaded, tough question kind of to answer what you want to do with life, considering that there's so many outlets and so many things that are, I guess, open for you to do. You can't just focus on one thing anymore. And that's true. I just think we all have an idea of what we want to do. We all have an idea of one thing we want to do, and then other things kind of form off of it, little branch off side projects, these types of things. You're throughout your life, you're constantly a work in progress. You never become a finished masterpiece. It never happens. Leonardo da Vinci highlighted that perfectly by saying art is never finished, just left undone. It's true, because there's constantly things you can add. There's constantly things you can change in your life, good or bad, that affect you. You're constantly growing as a person. It's always what I want to do with my life is hopefully podcast, but I can't make a living off that right now, which I don't mind. I do it for enjoyment. I do it for myself. If I could just live off podcasting and doing these types of things, that's all I'd want out of the world, because I found peace in it. I found a sense of accomplishment and a sense of learning more about people. I feel like so many people take very little time to understand what other people are interested in. Now,
and you know what, Robbie, hang on a second, buddy, because I think you're really touching on something, and it's going back to what we were saying before, the difference between you and Adam Carolla or Joe Rogan, and the difference between, I don't know, some young computer-minded person and Bill Gates really comes down to the drive. We're living in a society where people seem to feel like everything that's ever been made has been made, and there's nothing that they can ever do to leave their mark. But that's not going to be the case. I mean, we're going to see a whole new batch of young entrepreneurs that are making millions, billions of dollars because they have these new ideas. But the only reason why they have these new ideas is because they have the drive, right? So the only thing keeping you, and I'm going to use air quotes around this because there's other outside factors, of course, but realistically, the only thing keeping you from becoming the next Joe Rogan is you. I mean, there's just really no other way around that. And it's something that I've realized in my own life. The only thing keeping me from becoming, whoever, whatever I want to be is me. And then once you realize that, it just comes down to how much do you want to work? Do you want to be an Elon Musk type who he talks about how he used to sleep, 4 hours a night because there was just too much work to get done and he had to do it. And there's this internal drive, this fire that's telling you, you can't do anything else until you get this work done, right? And so it doesn't really matter if it's you or someone else. The only thing really keeping us from achieving that next thing is this idea that we're good enough to do it. That's the first part. And then the second part is putting in the work. Because you can't just sit there and think, well, I'm amazing, I'm the best, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Okay, great. Where's your work? Put in the work. Yeah. Now that you've decided I'm the best and I can do this thing, now go to work. That's the whole component. That's 80% of it.
And too many people get comfortable and just want things handed to them on a silver plate nowadays. It's hard to find people that are willing to put in the effort and put in the work to get what they want out of life. They just want the ending goal. I want the ending goal too. I want to be at the finish line already. I don't feel like it. But you know what? I'm going to walk this path. I'm going to take this journey and get what I want to achieve out of life, and I'm going to do everything possible I can to do that. I can't tell if were you comparing me to Joe Rogan?
Not yet. Don't flatter yourself.
I was about to say thank you. And in my book, I love you forever for that. But let me tell you about DMT. No, but he has it figured out. Joe Rogan has been an inspirational motivator, and I'm not anywhere in the likeness of him at all. But I like what he talks about. I've listened to his podcasts. Every day I listen to it, at least 2 or 3 of them, just because I don't really watch TV anymore. If I'm going to watch anything, it's just YouTube. It's just podcasts and conversations because, whether it's different ones or new ones, it's something you get to experience. It's something, when you find out how other people look at the world and you start diving into seeing knowledge as just conversations of people, thoughts, how they got this way, how they're thinking of things. It's all about understanding and doing these types of things. And he does it for himself. He used to do advertisements and stuff like that just to kind of get started and realize that was just a giant, whatever. And he's very, very beneficial to so many people's careers and so many people's lives because he says if you have something you want to do, he's going to help you try and do that. And he's got it figured out. He's one of the few people out in this world that are out there to benefit other people, not just do everything in just for themselves. And it's hard because we all want to not have to care for someone else, not to feel like we're being dragged down by someone else's problems. That's 100% true. But if you start looking at it in that light, you start seeing it as that they're a problem. And the only problem, like you were saying, is truly yourself. You're the only one standing in the way of what you want to do with your life. Life creates obstacles, much like you're a river and there's a rock in the way. You can choose to flow around it, or that obstacle can be broken through and moved around. What happens? But you have to adapt to your situations in your environment. If you have a business meeting, your car breaks down. Okay, that happened, but don't sit there and focus on that the whole entire time. If you can't get someone to come get you or can't get the problem fixed soon and you have to be at this meeting, start walking. Hopefully that's in your realm of possibility. And if you end up missing it or end up doing something like that, maybe that was what was intended to happen. Maybe that wasn't meant to be. I don't mean to say that there's like a bigger plan or a bigger scheme of things out there, but when it comes to the idea of everything happens for a reason, that is true in some aspects. There are some things that happen for a reason that might not be what you're interested in, whether it's a certain case like someone about to go sign $1 million deal for this company, and the next thing you know, he misses his meeting, and that company ends up getting sued, everybody gets thrown into jail that was involved in the project or signed up for the project. And next thing you're like, holy shit, I could be in jail right now. It's all like that. That's it. Life has these weird ways of working out, and whether it has its twists and turns, but that's what makes it beautiful. And that's I know that's I'm criticizing myself here by saying that because I get to moments where I'm like, this is too much. This is I can't handle it anymore. It's if this is what life is, it sucks. And I think that's just because of how everything in society today nowadays, especially people, are just looking to be copies of other people, looking to model themselves after somebody. You do need a model structure. You do need to have someone to look at, but don't model your whole entire life by them. Don't try and get plastic surgery to change your looks to look like somebody. Accept your flaws for who you are. Accept what you can do for what you can do. Not everybody's meant to look like a bodybuilder. Some people are meant to be big and fluffy. It's this whole idea that, like, when you start trying to look and model yourself off of somebody else's things and someone else's wants and goals, you're truly losing the aspect of what makes you an individual person.
Well, sure. I mean, here's the way I look at it, man. I don't know. I mean, people get caught up in the whole everything happens for a reason. And yes, I do believe that that's true. I do think that everything happens for a reason. But here's why. I think that we as humans are all connected. I want you to kind of visualize tiny strings that connect us to every other person that's around us, okay? Yeah. The people that we're close to, our family, our friends, the strings are a little bit thicker, but even people that we don't know, there is a string attached to them. And what can happen is when things happen to you, right, I think it's other people tugging on those strings. I mean, sometimes there's cosmic things that happen. And like you said, your car gets a flat tire and then you stop and you're like, man, I just got a flat tire. I can't believe it. And then you look a mile down the road and a semi truck explodes. And that's exactly where you would have been. Like, a lot of that stuff feels cosmic, like you're being protected from something. And I understand that, but at the same time, I think that that's where a lot of this personal responsibility stuff comes in, and the self-actualization. I don't want to keep using that because it has kind of a religious undertone, but just the idea that someone else is tugging on their cosmic strings that connect them because they're trying to force a change in their own lives. And I'm not saying that because they're doing something, it's going to affect you in a negative way. I'm just saying that if you're stationary and if you're not tugging on your own cosmic strings, you're leaving yourself susceptible to just kind of being pulled in whatever direction might be coming in the wind, if you know what I mean.
I agree with you 100% because, I mean, not making it a simple example of someone sticking a quarter in a gumball machine, next thing you know, they turn it, get a gumball out, and then my car doesn't start in the morning. Whether I know that's related or not.
No.
What you're saying is the fact that I could be at a store paying for something and the woman in front of me is taking an extremely long amount of time. And even though I'm getting frustrated, but I'm not expressing it, I'm just kind of dealing with it myself. Like, oh my God, I'm going to be late for my meeting. And then when I go to walk out the door, there was a car accident that happened right in front of the store that I could have been in if someone, a pedestrian was hit. I could have been that pedestrian. There was a thing that happened that kept me from, that minute being longer in the store kept me alive. I believe in that. I do believe that there's things of that sort.
Well, in that woman that you're getting frustrated with, by you not lashing out and being like, hey, hurry up, let's go, you're not tugging on that negative cosmic string in her brain, which means that she's not in turn going to think about what a douchebag that guy was, and then she's going to be mean to someone else and she's going to tug that cosmic string. That's what I'm talking about.
That's a cool perspective, man. Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you're a jerk or you make someone's day awful, it all follows like a pyramid scheme. You yell at somebody, the that person yells at someone lower than them, that person yells at someone lower than them, and then so on and so on. It's just a never-ending cycle. And that's true, dude. I have been in the store and witnessed a woman waiting to get her Starbucks Frappuccino, Mocha Spritz or whatever, or run over to Panera Bread, rushing this dollar store worker or a woman that is 90 years old and stocking shelves, working the whole store by herself, walks away from the counter for a minute. This girl walks up, starts ringing the bell 1,000 times. Can you hurry up? There should be someone at the register. I mean, come on. I'm just sitting there like, I'm 21 years old. You're 40. And in my head, I'm like, people think of me as the type that would do that. And I'm not. I'm just so whatever, go with the flow type guy. I like
Sure.
if anything, if I'm gonna say you shouldn't model yourself off people, but if there's one person to model yourself off of is the dude from The Big Lebowski. I mean, one of my all-time favorite movies. But that guy truly was just like, the dude abides. It's living that lifestyle is the lifestyle I choose to do. I'm gonna put whatever I want to get done in this world, but I'm not gonna fret over the small shit, over the stuff like she obviously her Panera could have waited 5 minutes, for this woman that is already having a rough day and probably just working because she didn't have her whole retirement plan worked out. And it's like I see this and I just told the woman, I'm like, I'm sorry. She's like, what? It's not your fault, sweetie. I'm like, no, but I apologize on behalf of a lot of people out here because we're all not like this. There are people out here that give a shit. And there are people that are obviously having a bad and rush day. And that might have been what that woman was going through. So I can't make a judgment on her for that. But it's all about understanding. It's all about, it wasn't my job to have to apologize to this woman. But I looked at her and I was like, hey, don't get yourself down. Seriously, don't fret the small stuff. It's all about that. And I'm a victim of it too. I'm a victim of fretting the small stuff all the time. My car broke down recently. I was without a ride, hitchhiked. It wasn't fun. I felt alone. And that whole time thinking, I was like, hey, this is just something that happened. And it took me a while to get over that and finally get that into my head. But it happened. It was a week ago, and I've moved on. I've not only don't even think about it that much anymore. And it's like, it like people say it gets better with time. No, it just gets better. It's just like you totally are like, all right, that happened, so it's just another story in my life. Like, it's not something to fret upon now. It's not something that's in my immediate future. We can worry about what's in the now, and being in the now is what matters.
Well, and what you can control too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole thing. It's something that people need to separate out is what they have control over and what they don't. Your car being stolen or your car breaking down or whatever. I mean, sure, if you're not taking good care of your car, that's on you. But if it just happens because
I hit a nail in my
it was
car.
like a failure.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, that's not something that's your fault, right? But I'm going to give you something that they say in the car racing world. It's fast hands in the slow stuff, slow hands in the fast stuff. And what that means is when you're at a high speed on a track, you don't want to make any sudden moves. You want to do things that are calculated. Okay, it's not about. I'm not talking about stopping and really like spending time thinking. Well, I want you to stop and take time thinking, but what it's not is just indecision. You're on a racetrack. Of course you have to make a decision. Okay. But when you're doing something that's a really big thing in your life, it's a big decision. It's going to change a lot of things.
Yeah, you need to make sure you have a plan.
I like to spend a little time thinking about it. Right. But if it's the small stuff, you make those decisions and you move on. And there's not a whole lot you can do about it after the fact, but hopefully it wasn't a big enough decision to where you're going to be kicking yourself, right?
Yeah, for sure. And, a lot of people like to live their life spontaneous, and that's fun to do a lot of the times. But for some people, it doesn't work that way. For some people, they want to have a calculated plan. I like to think 10 steps ahead and prepare for the future, but I also like to be spontaneous at times, It all depends on, like, do you want to wear socks today? Do you not want to wear socks today? It's that whole thing. Whatever you feel like is in the moment, kind of. A race car driver, the fact that they have to calculate so many things and worry about so many things popping up. First of all, you're doing something dangerous is driving, but also doing something dangerous is driving 200 miles an hour. You know how many things can go wrong that are out of your control and how many things can go wrong that are in your control? There's just so many things to worry about. And if you start sweating small stuff like, oh my God, like if you start thinking of every possible worst case scenario and all these different things, you don't want to go experience the world anymore. You just want to be like, oh shit, what's the world anymore when I know I can sleep? and I could be perfectly safe in my bed. That's not true either. Ceiling fan could fall on you. All these types of things can fall on you. Then you end up being a hypochondriac, worried about every little possible thing, and just your life is hell. Stop sweating all the small stuff, okay? I don't want to go parachuting because I'm afraid of heights. So I'm not going to do that. I'm not even going to put that worry in my book. You know what I mean? I'm not ever going to think about, oh, what happened? You know, if I fall from the sky and hit the ground, I'll die. It's like, I know people that think about that and are too afraid to realize the real world to the point where they have to take medication just because they're worried about the weirdest stuff in the world. But I don't see it as being weird. I just see somewhere along the way, their mind, their wires might have got a little bit crossed. You know, it's all about understanding people. You know, if I'm able to hear from somebody that I consider a friend at work, and him say he doesn't have $5 to make it to the bus and nobody can give him a ride, traffic's really busy, and he's just going to walk it, all because he doesn't have $5. You're telling me when I drop that $5 and he finds it on the street, it's a random coincidence? If he wants to believe that, I want him to. I don't want him to know I did it then. But at the same time, you know, there's these things sometimes, you know, when you talk about people pulling on cosmic strings, sometimes you can improve someone's life without having to mention that you did it something. You know what I mean? I feel like I see too many people nowadays, like they're willing to help somebody, but they want others around them to see that they're helping this one person. I'm like, but why? Do you
Right.
need that gratification and knowingness of someone seeing that you did something good? Why don't you just be good? And I think we're all a lot of just consumed with acceptance. And I think that's what happens when you truly neglect not only what you want to do with your life, but neglect who you are as a person. And I think a lot of what goes on today, everyone's kind of stuck to the same social norms, I guess. Like you have to be this way, you have to model yourself like Jeff. Jeff's an awesome guy. Jeff works a 9 to 5 job, wears a suit and tie, has a wife and some kids. You know, you could be more like Jeff. There were those commercials back in the day that played on that grounds that used to say, hey, be like this guy. Don't do drugs. Be like this guy. Well, that worked for that guy. It doesn't work for somebody else. I've talked to people that have experienced drug trips and spiritual experiences that make them a whole resonation of what it meant to do with their life, what they meant to be, whether it was like an epiphany type moment. You know, it's popular with the Native Americans. And I'm not 100%
Sure.
pro drug and I'm not 100% against it. I'm open to interpretations and understanding of why people think these ways. And I'm not going to, just because I'm not for it or against it, or for it, whatever, I'm not going to bother or try and change somebody who is for it. You know what I mean? It's all about how you experience the thing, and it's like what you were saying. It works differently with each person.
Oh yeah, everybody's different, and you got to kind of know yourself is the whole thing. You know, I mean, Oregon had marijuana legalized recently, okay, and listen, man, for 90%. I don't know, maybe it's more like 80%, who knows, of the population, it is completely harmless. And as a matter of fact, it can have a lot of medicinal benefits. I've known people who are extremely angry when they smoke. I've known people who 100% had an addiction. And there's this whole thing about, oh no, you can't get addicted to it.
That's not
It's
true.
completely non-addictive, all that stuff. You can be addicted to just about anything because when someone, okay, so let's say a person wakes up in the morning and they have to blaze and they have their reasons. They say, I just can't make it throughout the day. I have anxiety, whatever. They have to blaze in the morning, okay? You have somebody that wakes up and says, man, I just have so much anxiety. I have to have a couple of shots of rum before I can even get up and go to work. What do we call those people? We call them alcoholics.
Yeah, but that's not true for everyone. I know somebody who
No,
the only
exactly.
thing is like for him to have a conversation with somebody, just be able to say hi, even to his own parents. He has to take a little swig of alcohol in the morning and then he doesn't drink for the rest of the day. But he feels like in his mind that psychological dependence on that's what needs to get him out there and get going to that. And he knows that he can probably overcome that some way, but he's just not willing to take the time to figure it out. Now, if that works for him, that's good. Alcohol, anything is bad in excess, whether it's alcohol, drugs, anything like that. Now, I podcasted with someone who looking at his podcast, he was a giant stoner type podcast type thing. A great experience and wonderful person. His name's Colin, and he had some good thoughts and stuff. But just looking at his podcast stuff, I kind of kicked it in. Like, tell me about what's your interest in pot? And he's like, dude, to be 100% honest, I fucking hate it. I hate that I rely on it. I hate that I need this to basically function. I hate how my brain, and it just starts going so deep. And I'm hearing this whole other side of this person that I've been watching and basically kind of learning about through all his like social media stuff. And I'm like, wow, man, I wasn't expecting this. And he was like, it's a gateway drug, man. The fact that it led me on to bigger and harder things because I built up such a tolerance. That's true. Some people, it leads to something deeper and something darker and something heavier because they want to express this escape from reality. And I think that's what the whole thing is. I don't think when you categorize or when you look at something as being a gateway to something, I think there's that gate's always there, but it gets highlighted when something that you feel like is not so bad as suppressing it doesn't work anymore. And it's all because of the world today. I feel like a lot of what I've been saying a lot in my podcast now is like talking about society and the world, but it seems like it's on, when I say it's a conversation between me and you, it's usually focuses in sometimes on that because it's what we're all thinking. It's what we're all experiencing. It's something we can all relate to. Much like when you see a sunset, that's not only me seeing that. You're seeing the same thing I'm seeing, maybe we have different thoughts on it and different things like this, but this is something we all can share. It's not something I have and you don't. And the world is something we all have. It's not one person's thing. It's not, it's whatever you want to make it to be. It's all of ours to share. And I think once we start looking at it in that light, you start realizing like there's just some things you can change, some things you can't, but there's some things that you're going to find fun in. You're going to find fun in barbecuing and drinking beer with friends. I don't like alcohol, but I'm not going to justify trying to change you from drinking if you enjoy drinking. Some people do it to relax. Some people do it to open up. Some people do it to bond. I know some of the moments I've had with my friends where back when I did experience my time with alcohol was, it was a moment that I don't remember exactly what was said. I just know fun times were spent, and I have a memory of this person where I'm like, he's my fucking brother. And it's sometimes people need that to open up sometimes. And I just think, there's so many things in this world and anything can be done in excess. And once you do something in excess, it's just not, it's not healthy anymore.
Well, you need to know yourself is the thing. A lot of people don't want to know themselves. They want to just kind of ignore whatever their issues are. And when you can finally face them and go, hey, I don't like this thing about me. I have been in a couple of car accidents and I spent some time in the hospital. I actually had to have my right arm immobilized for 4 months because of a shoulder injury. And man, I gained a lot of weight. I got fat and now I'm 35 and I don't want to be this way anymore. And for a long time, I just ignored it. I just thought, well, that's who I am. That's the way it's got to be. But recently, my wife and I started going to the gym. I started trying to be more careful with what I eat. And it's just having that moment where you go, I really don't like this anymore. And I have every power to change it. And I'm just going to make the decision to change it. And once you make that decision, then you're basically on your way. I mean, that's kind of the first step. What do they say in AA meetings or what's that saying? It's like admitting it is the first step or something like that.
The first step is acceptance and then realizing that you have a problem and all that. I like I said,
everything in life is that way, dude. Everything in life, not just addiction, not anything. Accepting that you don't like your station in life and you want to change it. Accepting that you want to do something different for work. Accepting that you want a better car. Like all of it is that. And once you accept it, then, of course, you need to do the work. You need to make a plan and you got to work that plan. But kind of saying, I don't like this and I want to change it really is the first step. And then, the work then comes in like we've already talked about. But once you kind of realize I have every power to change this and I'm going to, that really sets you on a path then. And it can be for good or for bad. If you start saying, going back to addiction, I can't handle this. I want to do whatever. So something that someone has been trying to explain to me for a long time, and I'm finally just starting to get it. Your brain is like a computer, right? It only outputs what you input. And we don't have control over the things that were input for the first 2, 3, 4, 5 years, right? Some might even argue up to the first 10 years. We don't really have that much control over what's put into it. And that's why childhood traumas are so toxic and so bad for people. But at this point, we have control over it. And so if you sit there and you go, I can't go throughout the day without this drink, and you just keep saying that over and over and over, your brain's going to believe it.
Yeah, and then
Conversely, if you say, I just can't keep living the life that I'm living, I want to change things for the better, and you keep saying that over and over, your brain is then going to input that. It's a habit just like anything else. And let me tell you, dude, I'm horrible about it. Like, I'll talk down to myself constantly.
Dude,
it's such a bad thing.
we all do it, bro. We all do it. Now, something
Well, but that's not, you can say that we all do it, but at the same time, we shouldn't be. That's kind of the point here, is that even though we all do it, we need to start realizing as a society that that is extremely harmful.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I've tried to say to so many people, and they don't understand it. And so, after we get done with the conversation, it's like, if you think about everything, society tries to cripple you down, but you shouldn't let it, okay? And I know that's a lot to say, and I'm at fault to not even taking my own advice when it comes to that. But let me tell you something. Going to what you were saying about taking the time to better yourself by going to the gym. I've worked out every single day, and this isn't to brag, but for going on 7 years now, I have not missed a day. It doesn't matter if my car's working, I will find a way to go to the gym. It does not matter. The reason why is I experienced a type of bullying in school that made me hate my body. I got made fun of for being overweight to the point where I started working out every single day, sometimes twice a day for 2 to 3 hours at a time, just to get to the point where I wanted to change myself because I cared so much about what others thought of me. Now I do it for my health. I do it for myself. I do it because it's literally like checking my phone in the morning or taking a shit. It's part of my life now. It's something I always tell people when I see them in the gym, like right now, when I go tonight or something, I'll see kids there that are overweight, or see people that I used to go to school with that don't perform in athletics anymore once they graduated, and that they've drank so much alcohol because they just realized life's kind of depressing and all this type of things, and they kind of turn to that. And it's common with kids my age, especially being around the 21, 26 area. It's kind of heavily big when they start diving into alcohol. Some people do. And I live in a local bar town, so that's what it is. It's a popular tourist attraction to go out drinking, and all these clubs that are open and stuff, and all these attractions to practically go around music and drinking and all these types of things. And seeing them look at themselves in the mirror and be like, damn, I miss my high school body. I'm like, that wasn't something you're going to have forever. I've been offered sponsorships by my gym for somewhere I've worked for doing bodybuilding competitions when I was at 3% body fat, and just caring about what I ate. If I ate a can of tuna, that would be it. And I would run to the gym and burn 1,600 calories. I realized, in the past year now, that I've just come to the realization that I've been doing this every day for almost 7 years, and it's fucking putting a toll on me. Like, getting out of bed in the morning, my fucking legs hurt. I'm feeling there's no rest days. I don't have those. And I think it's ridiculous nowadays how serious I was taking my nutrition habits, where if I ate one French fry, I'd go on the treadmill and burn 1,600 calories. Now, I am getting a little bit open here, but it's all about doing things at a point to better yourself, not to care what others thought about. And once I started seeing it like that, I started realizing I'm doing this for me. I like that when I post up a six-pack picture or something, someone likes and comments it, like, oh, wow, you're so lucky. I'm like, all it takes is determination. But I also highlight the bullshit of it all. I say, look at this. This is 80% lighting, 20% work. That's all it is. Like, it's when you see those bodybuilders and all those type of pictures, they're so makeup drawn on them, so many of them. And I follow real bodybuilders, people that are popular, and they show the bullshit. They show this fake side. They show like, this is all Hollywood. You see this? You see this six pack you love? It's contoured, bro, and they're showing the makeup. And I'm like, when we live in a society that displays these types of false images and false realities, it gives people this depressive thing, like they're not going to be anything with their life, to where they just shovel food in their face and they feel like, I don't want to go people to go see me. I'm going to wear this size 3 times over jacket that doesn't fit me, but it just hides all my layers and stuff. I've done that. It's been 90 degrees out and I'll put a fucking jacket on. Either because I'm at such a low body fat that I'm cold, or that I don't want people to look at me. Hell, dude, even in my house, taking a shower, I feel like I want to wear board shorts. I don't like looking at myself in the mirror because I pulled out a type of thing from bullying that's like body dysmorphia. And I'm slowly overcoming that. I'm slowly kind of recognizing like there's a problem here. And it takes a long time to get over something of this sort. But relating to somebody, like let's say yourself, about getting back in the gym and realizing you needed a change. I see these people in the gym all the time, but after a week they're gone and I never see them again. And I'm like, where did they go? And they gave up. And the reason why is the first 2 weeks are the hardest. But once you get past that 2 weeks, it starts becoming an everyday routine. It starts becoming something that you are going to start enjoying, something that you just have to take in moderation. Realize if you have a fuck up day, if you have a day where you binge out or do something and you be lazy, you can go out and fix that. It's not going to cripple your progress. It's not going to do any of these types of things. And I hate the.
And you know what, bro? It's so funny that you're saying that too, because business is the same way. I struggle. Okay, we were talking about working out, right? But before you go on, I just wanted to say, trying to start my own business, it's the same way. You have those days where you just feel like you've made no headway, you're making no traction. Like, what is going on with me? Maybe I shouldn't be doing this, but it's all about that grind. It's all about doing it every day and building up those good habits and all of that other stuff. You working out, people associate this idea with health. What you're saying is nothing new, but they never seem to associate it with things like building up a business or doing their side job or just doing a better job in their own field, right? They know what they have to do to get that advanced position in their company, but they don't want to do it because it's this extra level of work and blah, 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 and all that other stuff. But that's the only thing that's really holding you back. And so this idea of, the first 2 weeks are the hardest, you're building up a habit and all that other stuff. It's exactly the same way with absolutely everything else in life. It's kind of shocking.
Yeah, and that just doesn't go with business either. And doesn't, like you were saying, yeah, it doesn't just focus on the gym, and that's just a common example. But for exactly being a mother or a father, after a couple months of dealing with raising a child and understanding what it is, you adapt to your kid. You start to realize there's these things you can do that helps. Some people only know how to put their kid to sleep. Only know ways like, I can't get this kid to sleep. I can't get this kid to sleep. And my brother, who just became a dad, is just like, watch this. Freaking hands the kid a candy bar. Next thing you know, the kid's passed out. He goes, that's how you do it. I'm like, did you just cheat code your kid? Like, what? Like, I just spent the past 10 hours trying to wind his ass down. You fed him a candy bar. He went right out. He goes, sometimes they just need, that's a bad example of a candy bar, but, sometimes they need, there's these little tricks you pick up along the way. And it's the same thing for a business. When you feel like you get, ruts happen, you get stuck in a rut. There's a reason why there's a expression, stuck in a rut. But, you can break out of that rut anytime you want. You just have to be willing to apply yourself to get out of it and realize, first of all, recognize, like you said with the AA steps thing, recognize you're in a rut. First of all, you feel like your life's a constant boring dread or constant thing. Start to change that. Go out and experience the world. It's the whole reason I even dived into talking to people and podcasting with people. Everyone's like, no, you just enjoy talking. I was like, I do. And I enjoy talking to people. And they're like, yeah, so you love people. I don't like people. I'm like, I don't like people either. I'm like, what do you mean you don't like people? You like podcasting? Nah, people. I'm like, no. People, everybody fucking sucks, man. I suck, you suck. It's all that. But that's not being mean to you. That's just saying we choose to suck only because we're so willing to be comfortable and not be truly great or pursue anything that we want to pursue. We prefer to get comfortable and just try and get through life. I've talked to everybody I think I've ever met in my life has always said they're just, I got through life. It's like, Why are you saying you're getting through life? Don't you want to say you lived it? Don't you want to say you were able to do it as much as you wanted to do and do as much as you possibly can and experience everything you can? And the only true people you can see that are actually truly happy, that aren't hold down by anything or any type of possessions type things and the lifestyle they which choose to live, is monks. Like these types of guys. I'm like, shit, dude. I'll take a year of my life if I can ever get past this not going to the gym thing and try and live a monk lifestyle. I'd love to do that because to see what they have, this I've seen those guys that are truly like, I don't give a shit. Like I wear robes and this is what I do. I shave my head every morning and I pray at 2 o'clock in the morning. You're like, I don't know about the praying type thing, but that sounds like you got something you like to do. And it's all about finding your peace in the world, finding what not just like your peace, like, oh, this is my inner peace, but your piece of the pie, bro. Like, what is it that you want out of this thing, man? You got a dish in front of you. What part do you want? Do you want the whole damn thing? Like, are you going to take the time to actually take the whole damn thing? You know?
You know, it's so funny that you bring up the pie analogy because podcasting is a lot the same way. People always think that podcasters are going to be adversarial, right? That we're all like trying to compete against each other. And what were we saying about those stats? They say that 40 some odd % of people even know what a podcast is. And that's just in the United States. And then something like 10% of all people in the country even listen to podcasts. I think it's even less than that. I think that the numbers are skewed. And because podcasts can get so nichey, I know I'm going off on a completely different tangent here. It's just when you were talking about it, it reminded me. So there's this saying when it comes to like online sales, right? If you see someone that's selling 2 million of a certain product and the product just came out and someone's putting it out there and they're selling 2 million of it, right?
Okay.
You have to look at what total market saturation is, because if the total market saturation is 5 million units, and let's say you get in and you're only able to sell 200,000 units of that thing.
Yeah.
Well, if your profit on each of those was $10, then how much profit is that, right? So you have to start looking at it as you're not just taking a small piece of the pie. You have to look at the overall value, right? And I think that has a lot of the same relationship with podcasting. So like my food show, we go out to about 8,000 ears, which doesn't seem like that much. You know, Joe Rogan gets hundreds of millions of ears listening to him from all across the globe. But with my show being so specific about just food related stuff. And you know what? That's not even that specific, bro. Like if I wanted to really do it right, I would have a show that is about a specific type of diet or a show about a specific ingredient. I mean, that's how granular podcasts can get. And that's you taking a piece of that pie because you're really focusing at a very targeted audience, right? So like what you're doing right now, you'll reach a wide array of folks, but at the end of the day, you might not have a specific targeted audience, right? I'm just using you as an example. I'm not saying that your show is bad or anything like that. but at the end of the day, you don't have as focused an audience as like the guy that's doing, I don't know, a show specifically on fire suppression nozzles. Okay. Yeah. He might only have 300 listeners, but it's a highly targeted audience,
that's a fucking
right?
example for you, right? Jesus, that's a narrowed specific topic. Fire nozzles. Holy crap. That's funny. Okay. All right. Get back to what you're saying.
Well, the only reason why I say that is because I know someone that has a show like that, and he makes really good money, even though he only has a couple hundred listeners, because it's just such a niche market, and they're trying to, access that very niche market. But at any rate, I'm just using that as an example because when people start getting down on themselves and they're thinking, well, I can't do anything because there's nothing left for me to be original at or accomplish it at, what they fail to understand is that, like you were saying, that piece of the pie that everybody wants, that pie is so much bigger than people realize. Could you live your life well on $60,000 a year? Absolutely, you could. 100%. Maybe not in San Francisco, maybe not in Washington, D.C., but here in Oregon, yeah, no, that'd be fine. That'd be a livable wage. Could you live your life on, I don't know, $200,000 a year? Of course. Of course. You'd be living a better life than 99.9% of the people on the planet, right? And the thing that we all have to keep in mind is that that is still completely attainable. Completely attainable. People that have kind of the get rich quick, not the get rich quick schemes, but the ones that seem to just be able to pull money out of thin air. As you get older, Robbie, you're going to meet these people where they just, it's like everything they touch is gold, and they seem to have some kind of a foreknowledge of what's going to happen. And it's not necessarily because they're any better or smarter than you are, but it's because they've just got themselves to this position where they're much more open to hearing what the universe has to say to them, right? And they're not afraid to try to get their chunk of the pie no matter what they see. They see somebody doing something and they go, hey, I could piggyback off of that, or I could do that with a little bit of a twist, and it would appeal to a different audience slightly, not as many people, but still a few people. I remember a guy that I went to college with. He bought these boxes of 80% finished AR-15 lower receivers. And at the time, I was just like, what in the heck are you going to do with those? And he was like, I don't know, but this whole pallet was like $150. It was crazy cheap. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. Well, and then eventually he met up with a guy that was a machinist who was also a gun person. And he was like, hey, what are you going to do with all those AR receivers? And he was like, I don't know. And the dude was like, I can help you sell them because I have the means to, stamp them and finish them and stuff like that. And he made a great turnaround of money. He I don't know, quintupled his money on the deal. And it's little stuff like that where he's going, I know people want this thing. I don't really know what to do with them. But if I take the opportunity and I go and I figure it out, I think I can turn it into something. And that is a way of thinking that I am trying to adopt so much, but it's hard. Not a lot of people are able to think that way. I know that it's been very difficult for me to think that way, but I also don't think that people are just born that way. I think that you can train yourself to be that way. And I think you can train yourself to kind of tune into what's up and coming. And that's the thing I like about the idea of a side hustle. You're not trying to hustle anybody. That's the only part of the saying that I don't like. But what you're trying to do is just see what other pies you might be able to slice a piece out of, right?
Yeah. I'm trying to see what, I guess, is out there for everyone, not just myself included. I feel like I spent too much of my time getting in a routine and getting fixed on worrying about myself, where the real thing I wanted out of life was to see what other people wanted and to see what other people are interested in, getting their thoughts on things. It's all about changing perspective. I think that's what I want to do, is just constantly keep my perspective on its toes, whether it's diving into the world of podcasting with bodybuilders, podcasting with transgenders, podcasting with all these types of people I've had the fortunate ability to be able to talk to, and just better equip my own knowledge and better understanding of life. And, even though that might mean nothing in the end after I'm gone, it's just the whole aspect of like, I'm here to kind of voice these people in a voiceless world that seems like everyone, like you were saying, there's so much for everyone to dive into and create, but everyone looks at the narrowed down mindset of like, well, the iPhone's already been created. Oh, this has already been created. Everything's already been created. I'm like, that's not true. There's so much more out there that is left to be accomplished or created. And it all starts with an idea and a thought. You might not experience that right now, and you can't craft something so much as pure fire or pure spark or anything. It's just out of nothing. Sometimes you just can't do that. Sometimes it just has to come, whether you're just sitting there like, holy shit, I got an idea. And then the next thing you're writing down, next thing you know, it becomes a worldwide invention that's popular all around the world, and we wouldn't know how to survive without it. You know what I mean? Like the person that invented the light bulb, I doubt he just had it throughout his whole entire life was like, what would be really cool is this freaking bulb that holds electricity that people use in every single day objects. Like, that would be pretty awesome. There's no that never happened.
Well,
it randomly was like,
and my whole Well, my whole point here is the first person to invent the light bulb, the fifth person to start making light bulbs, the 19th person to start making light bulbs. They were all rich. I mean, do you think that the 24th person to invest in Facebook isn't rich right now? Well, I mean, if they sold their stocks early on, maybe they're not. But like, you don't have to be the one that invents Snapchat or Facebook or the light bulb. A lot of times you can just be one of the people that surrounded yourself with them. And these days, honestly, you don't even have to be that. Because of the internet, you can be a person that sees someone else succeeding with a product and you can go, hey, mind if I get some of that product from you? I'm going to see if I can sell some of it too.
It's all about piggybacking and throwing your own spice or a little bit of spice to the big product that someone might have created. And I think you can do that in positive and negative ways. So many people just want to get the ending product. Like, hey, man, can you just throw my name in there so I get some credit and get some popular things? That's a kind of a bad way of taking it. But then I see the good ways of taking it where it's like, someone created the light bulb, but have you ever thought of maybe a more effective way of finalizing that invention and kind of creating it this way? And the next thing you know, that becomes a new thing that's implemented everywhere, all the way across from hospitals to wherever it goes. And I think that's what truly is what makes people special, is the idea that we can innovate and throw our own creative mix into the boiling pot here. Just like an artist on stage or a musician working with other musicians, it becomes a family. It becomes these chefs cooking in a kitchen, making a finalized product where everyone's adding their own spice to the mix. And once you get down to that, it's like anything is possible. Anything is, whether it's a cover of a song. I've heard covers that sound better than the original, but I've also heard the original sound better than covers. It works both aspects. It all depends on what you want to take and what you want to really grasp out of life, man, and it's truly what it means. And I'm glad to talk to someone that actually understands that as much as I do, because you definitely have a better understanding. You're a lot more knowledgeable just because with your more experience on the world. But all you're doing is giving me more experience in my life and being able to enrich myself and more knowledge about these thoughts and things and coming to conclusions of things. I always tell people there are no bad conversations. It's just talking. You don't come down to the same conclusions. Everybody on this earth is not meant to agree with one another. But conversation's a conversation. There's no good and bad ones. It's just conversation. It's all about what you truly want to take from it. I can suggest a million things that you can be doing with your life to better it. You don't have to listen to a damn one of them. But if you want to hear my opinion,
well, sure, yeah.
I think I've talked to some of the best therapists in the world and podcasted with them and talked to them about why they got started into it and why I get it. And let me tell you, one of the best ones that I didn't know until recently was a therapist, was my best friend growing up, his mom. And I was like, she's always so nice and know all this stuff. And then I found out she owns her own therapy center. And talking to her, she's like, I'm real with my patients. Like, I can tell you what to do. And whether you want to choose to follow it or not, that's up to you. But I'm going to know and see something after our first couple of sessions if I'm truly helping you or not. Or if you're just here to bitch about your problems and really not, really not seek help for yourself. I'm just going to suggest you to someone that's going to be better suited to deal with you or what you're looking for. Because as much as you want to sit here and tell me about your problems, I'm not going to charge you for that, because that's not fair in my position. She sees it in that light, which I think is something very few therapists do. I think a lot of people out there are just looking for that paycheck, just looking to get the day by, looking to get the money. They don't truly care about the people sometimes. And hearing her say that and her experience with working with some therapists that are like that, I'm like, you truly give a shit about people. She's like, I do. She's like, if a girl comes to me and just wants to sit there and have someone to vent her problems into, I can recommend, a pillow to talk to or something that is going to be a less cheaper option than spending a couple $100s a session. And she was like, I wish I could do what I like to do with therapy for free, but I can't, it's not a way to live off that for free and be able to sustain myself. So I do make profit off of it. And she's like, I hate it, but at the same time, I'm not going to sit there and keep charging somebody who's not getting the help that I'm giving them. There's if they're not willing to accept it, or if they're not pulling anything smart, or I don't feel like I can help them, I'm not going to take any more time a waste from them or a waste from me trying to try and push something that's not going anywhere.
Well, and you bring up an interesting point. I mean, if you want to have anything work in life, and that includes therapy, by the way, you have to do it with intent. You have to go into it with this belief that you're wanting to do it and you're wanting to be there and you want to put in the work. Because if you just show up because, I don't know, you think you're supposed to show up, right? That's not going to get you any benefit out of therapy. One thing about me, Robbie, is I'm a cheapskate, okay? So if I'm paying money for something, I'm going to get my money's worth.
Yeah.
And
you're
therapy
talking
is
to
no
someone
different.
that
I would never go to therapy just to complain or have someone to bounce ideas off of. Like, that is ridiculous. If I'm going to go to a therapist, it's because I know exactly, well, I don't know exactly what kind of work I need, but I know that work needs to be done, and I'm going to pay them to, show me what needs to be done or where I can work on it or whatever, right? And ask those hard questions, because trust me, a lot of times people don't want to hear the answers to the questions that they have. I know you know what I'm talking about.
I do. And, you're talking to a fellow cheapskate himself, man. Like, I get most of my stuff from thrift stores. I save all my money. And it kills me to even spend $5 on a t-shirt, man, let me tell you. But I'll run across the street for a penny as much as the next person. But it's all the idea, like, there are people out there that have millions and millions of dollars that are willing just to throw that shit out there. And just to hear people bitch about their problems because they feel like there's not that shouldn't be something to charge with. Everyone should have an ear to talk to or just someone to talk to, and it's what puts podcasting in the realm. It's all just like, really, everybody's podcast is just a giant therapy session. It's not just bitching about problems, but it's just talking. So many conversations don't happen anymore. I mean, how many times is, like, I guarantee you the statistics on families that eat dinner together and actually sit down and talk without any phones or any type of interruptions is very few. It's not like how it used to be back in the day where that was a required thing. You sat down with your family at this time and you had dinner and you guys sat there and talked and figured out what's going on in everybody's lives. And it's hard that you hear from some parents and some kids, like, I have no idea what's going on in my sibling or my son or my whatever life. Like, I don't know what's going on in their world anymore. And I'm like, but he's 6 years old. Like, do you not talk to him? Like, no, he just, we don't have dinner anymore. And yeah, I get there's restrictions, like you have 2 jobs, 3 jobs, whatever, and it's not easy for you. But at the same time, it's getting lost in the world. So many people are like, here's your food, it's on the counter. I'm gonna go and watch some TV. It's like, what happened? Like, why don't we just sit down and eat and talk together? Just look at each other.
Man, that's the hard part, man. I'm a firm believer in you have to make choices. You can't just, because what's going to end up happening at the end of the day is you're going to work those 2-3 jobs or whatever. You're going to be gone, and your kid or your family or whoever, they could end up resenting you for that. You could be doing all of this stuff that you think is right in the moment that then ends up not being right. And so it's always a good idea to kind of step back and take that perspective. It's like I was telling you before, I'll start doing way too many things to the point where I can't get one thing finished, right?
Yeah.
And that is something that happens a lot more often than I think people realize, honestly, because the thing about you're working so many jobs that you just don't have time to sit down with your kid and talk to them. Well, so hang on a second. You're not really, doing that kid a service. You're not there and you're not present. And, like, I'm not trying to dog on anybody that works multiple jobs and all that other stuff, but sometimes you do have to kind of stop, take a step back, think about your perspective and go, am I really doing what's right for me, for my child, for my family? You get what I'm saying? It's not always about just making all of that money and I want to make all this money so that they can live well. What if they don't need that money? What if they just need more of you in their lives?
Yeah, you got to look at the grand scheme of things, because it takes, it's stuff that money's not going to matter in the end when you're gone, but a moment or whatever isn't going to matter to you when it's gone, but it's going to matter to that person when you're gone. It's going to decide if they show up to your funeral or not. A kid that never gets to talk to his parents and feels like they're neglected by their parents is not going to show up at their parents' funeral. They're not going to give a shit. They're going to be like, oh, whatever, he was an asshole. It's like, you don't want to leave that for someone like that. And, do you have kids of your own?
I don't.
Okay, but you have a nephew and these types of things. Well, I guarantee
Hmm.
you want to do as much as you possibly can to benefit and help his life out, as much as teach him tools to survive in the world and pass on your wisdom and knowledge and experience to him. And you don't look at that as you be doing a service. Realize that shouldn't be a service or a job type thing. That should just be common moral values of people. We should go back to the old ways where bonding wasn't so, I guess, closed from people, so many out of the grasp of people feel like, oh, I don't want to really get to know anybody, I just feel comfortable doing this because this is what I do, and I'm comfortable with it. It's like, yeah, but if you're not sitting down and understanding what's going on or talking to the people around you, you're not finding out things, you're not getting information, you're just being closed off to the world. If you close yourself off from the world, you're never truly going to be happy, and you're never truly going to get anything done.
Well, that's a fact. And you can't always keep everything just light and fluffy. I mean, sometimes you do have to have those deeper, difficult conversations.
Yeah.
And, feeling it out. I mean, what else can you really do? But, and you don't have kids, I assume.
I hope not, but,
You never really know these days.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and that's the whole thing. Like what I was saying about my nephew, and it's not a negative thing. Like, he's never really worked on stuff. Why would he? Look at the way we're living right now. Like, if you're not in a family that promotes that kind of thing, then you're never going to have any access to it. And that's just the way it is. My dad was kind of a baseball star. He actually went to college on a baseball scholarship, and had the opportunity to go into AAA ball and stuff like that. And so, much to his chagrin, when we would go out and throw the ball around, I would say, all right, well, that was fun, but I'm going to go back and start working on my go-kart, because that's just the type of person that I was. I just had that natural inclination and proclivity. But, meeting people where they need to be met, whether it's a child or the homeless guy on the street or whatever, I will say, I don't ever give people cash, and I've gotten some flack for it in the past. I will buy lunches, coffee, burgers, like whatever, but I don't do cash for people that I see on the street because
you don't know if they're going to spend it on booze, or if
not.
they're going to do something that's going to worsen their life in your eyes than better it. Sometimes they're looking for a way to cope with something, like, I just needed to buy food. Next thing you know, he's walking down the street with a bottle. I'm pretty sure everybody that's probably donated to a homeless person can give that same example.
Well, sure. And I have a unique perspective on it because I have people very close in my life, or at least in the past, they were very close, that have ended up on the street. And very, very rarely is it the situation of just, oh, I lost my job and then I lost my house and I'm just trying to get back on my feet. Like, if you land on the streets, I'm not saying every time, people, so let's calm down a little bit, but by and large, for the most part, it's going to be either drugs/alcohol, or it's going to be some type of mental illness. And if you truly do want to help those people, we've done pajama drives for at-risk youth, my wife and I, and I'm very proud of some of those things. We've done money drives that go to charities that we pick on our own, local ones, by the way. I don't do this national, international stuff. I always donate to local outfits because they're not, I mean, there's always the possibility of corruption or whatever, but they're not going to have the same. Right, exactly. But they're not going to be at the same level. You're still going to see the vast majority of that money going to help your own community. I'm very community driven. I always want to see the help that we give being put directly into our immediate community, because it goes back to what you were saying before about keeping yourself healthy so that you can help other people. If you can't help yourself, then you can't really help other people. And I just want to be able to work small to big. It's not that I don't want to donate to people abroad, but as long as there are children living on the streets in my town, that's where my money and my time is going to go.
Yeah, that is awesome. I bet you think that way. And you know what, dude? out of this podcast, I think I've really kind of found someone that kind of has the same train of thought I do, and it's really hard to find when it comes to the world. Everybody kind of looks at it as this decrepit thing that's never going to change, and I think we do have the tools to change it. There are people out there benefiting society, whether you're doing something that you might consider small scale, like helping out your local community. That's not small scale in the eyes of the community, though. It's all looking at whose eyes you're looking at it through. Doing things with podcasting. Some people don't like podcasts. Some people don't find it a talent or interest at all. So in their eyes, it's seen as a detriment. But in someone else's eyes, they look at it towards a light. They look at it to a hope. They look at it to a fun thing they like to wake up to in the morning. They like seeing that notification that you posted a new episode. They like listening in to hearing your conversations and stuff. And you got to realize, if there's anything to take away from this podcast, coming to an end here, it's just like life has so many things going on around it, and you got to pull what you want to pull out of it, not just worry about all the bad and all these types of things. Realize there is good out there, and there's things, we're not all meant to connect together. It's not going to happen. But if you don't take the willingness to try and then understand, okay, well, sorry that we didn't come to a conclusion, but hey, bam, there you go. There's nothing like that. It's all about finding what you want in this world and realizing you can achieve it, and the only person stopping it is you. And at the same time, in a world that is dealing with so many things going on around it, you have to understand that there are people that are going to enjoy what you're interested in. Like you were saying, narrowing down to a niche audience. Just because I might not be interested in listening to a fire nozzle type, exploratory podcast, whatever, it doesn't mean that person should stop doing it. And the people that think that just because they don't like something, that person shouldn't be doing that thing, or even giving that audience any type of drive to listen to it, that's dumb thinking, and that's one-sided completely. I think if you really want to look at the bigger picture of things, you shouldn't care what other people are interested in. You shouldn't be denying that person that wants to go to Comic-Con. You shouldn't be denying that person that wants to express themselves in however they want to express themselves. If that's what they want to do, then you shouldn't. If it bothers you, then you got to figure out why that's bothering you.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, everything is that way. You got to focus on yourself before you can start telling other people that they have issues. And I mean, realistically, that's a lot of the problem we have in our society right now, is that people want to tell you what issues you have, and they don't want to think about their own issues. And you know what's funny, Robbie, is that actually makes it a lot more difficult to do some of the stuff that we've talked about today, the kind of stuff like focusing on you and trying to fix what you're doing. Because when you start trying to do that, it's really easy to get down on yourself. And then if you also have people out in the world that are getting down on you for doing whatever you're doing, it's just kind of like this double up. So we can't have it both ways. We can't have a society that only lifts each other up, and then you can really stop and go, okay, what do I need to work on for myself? Okay. It would be nice, but that's not the way it works. Yeah. And so one of the things that makes this so difficult is when you finally stop and you go, hey, I have these things in my life that I want to work on. And it can be alcoholism, it can be health, or it can just be the way you think about things. It can be thoughts that run through your mind that you now want to get a handle on, right? Hell, it could be porn addiction. Like, I'm just throwing stuff out here at random, okay? One of the big ones for me is the thought process of, I'm not good enough, I can never be whatever I want to be, like it'll never happen. I need to just settle into this idea that I'm a natural born loser or whatever. Like, that's a constant thing that I've always fought with. And it's not really until you stop and you go, this is a problem. It's something that I want to change. But now you're inundated with people saying exactly the same thing to you all the time, right? And it's a weird concept of trying to cut as much of that out as your life, or excuse me, cut as much of that out of your life as you can, but not ostracize yourself from people or anything like that. So a lot of it comes down to who you're surrounding yourself with. Okay, so for example, you're a gym guy, right? If a person came to you and said, hey man, I need somebody to keep me accountable, like I don't need to exchange phone numbers or anything, but if you're here while I'm here, can you maybe just like when you see me, can we just converse a little bit so that I have that connection at the gym? I have no doubt that you've had people do that with you, or maybe you've done that with people.
I've experienced that. I think every single day I've gone so far. I'm probably going to experience it 2 to 3 times tonight. Just someone conversing, asking for a little bit of help. Where I'm like, here you go, you do it like this, it helps you out. And I've experienced the people that don't want to talk to anybody, just want to go in there, work out, and get their day done with. And anybody in their way is just a problem. I've seen the whole gym crowd. I've seen the people that go at 2:00 in the morning that just feel like they're only there because they can't talk with normal people. They can't conversate with normal people. Much like watching Alex Jones on Joe Rogan, you heard him try and talk. It seemed like he was really weird. He was really like seemed like he was dumb. Didn't know who he was talking about. No, he's not good at being a speaker. So he's a smart guy, but he does not know how to express his emotion. There are people like that. There are very few people that are good speakers in the world, able to talk to. I've podcasted with people that I swear, them talking, I'm like, how do you podcast? But at the same time, I'm not going to mention that. I'm not going to say that because I realize he's trying his hardest to get what he wants to get out of this and make this something he wants to do. And I'm not going to belittle him for it, because he has the drive to get it going and get it motivated.
Well, sure. And I mean, I do that too. I need to not, but like, it seems like every time I'm talking to somebody. So here's the thing. I have this goal to be on other people's podcasts as often as I can. My goal for a while there was to be on like 2 podcasts a week that weren't mine. Okay. I've let that slide a little bit because I've just gotten too busy, but I want to keep doing it because it's important for people like you and I. We need to keep our interview skills up because that's what we do. And if you're wanting to do this for a living as a job, you need to always be striving to do that better than anybody else. Like, that's the key, right? I'm speaking more to your audience than you right now, but people out there listening, just know that our interview skills are something that we're always trying to work on, and just being able to talk to people at random doesn't necessarily make you a good interviewer. And just like working out, just like watching what you eat or anything else, you are constantly working on that, and you're constantly aware of what you're doing, what you're saying, how you're saying it, because being aware of those things, once it becomes a habit, means that when you're in the moment and you're interviewing someone, then you're going to have kind of an intuitive way of talking to them. And so like, you don't follow any kind of a time format, but I do. And so I always am working on knowing exactly how long my episodes are. They need to be 55 minutes and 50 seconds because I go out in radio syndication, and I have to nail that pretty much every time. I don't always nail it, but I always get a little bit closer with every episode, right? And so just this idea of the repetition is important for you and I to develop ourselves, I guess you might say, right? Yeah. And so doing things like, hell, I don't know, going to the gym all the time and trying to talk to people and your accountability and everything.
I can actually use a good example. Yeah. It's just like with the gym. It's just, it's a muscle. It's something, if you take the time to not work at it anymore, you're going to see, when you go to pick it up later, or if you go back to it down the road, it's still there. The initial thing's still there, but it's not as fresh. It's not as, I guess, worked on, or like at a high tuned performance. It's like, if you lack your body, if you lack drive in your business, it's going to decrease. It's going to happen. It doesn't mean it's truly gone, but it just means you haven't worked at it forever. So it's going to take you a couple times to get right back into it. That's just like with podcasting and interviewing. When you're talking to people, you have to constantly kind of be talking to people and getting association out there. You can't just be excluded from everybody and do podcasts like once a year, do something like that, because they're not going to be as fresh. They're not going to be as good. They're not going to be as in the moment. They're not going to be as real. And you're not going to be on your toes, basically.
Right. And I got way sidetracked there, but the point I was trying to make was, you have to help yourself, try to help other people. But when it comes to what you're doing, just focusing on what you're doing, when you're doing it, and that repetition. I release every day, same time, same day of the week. I've never missed a week, and that's just one of those things that you have to do. People will rely on that repetition, and the whole reason why I was thinking about it was I was going back to the accountability buddy at your gym. If you don't show up for a week and they suddenly don't have you there to keep them accountable, not that that's your responsibility, but in some ways it's that lost connection for them. And, things can happen.
I relate that to
they
my
might
gym
say, well, if they didn't care.
I relate that to my headphones. If I tried the other day, the first time in like 6 years, I tried working out without headphones. Dude, let me tell you something. I definitely had a lot more focus on what I was doing. But at the same time, without hearing Joe Rogan in my ears spouting something about DMT or some type of story he has with somebody, I felt lost a little bit. I was like, shit, like, where is that, that voice I usually hear when these weights are being lifted up? I expected half the time, even with my headphones not in, that when I grabbed the weight, I was going to hear Joe Rogan say something. But it's something. Sometimes we have that little side thing that keeps us a part of our program or routine that kind of keeps us motivated to go there and do that. Sometimes I relate my gym going and my drive to even get up every single day and go to the gym as, hey, it gives you a chance to listen to a podcast. I'm like, bam, there I go. That's what I want to do. So let's do it. I'm still benefiting myself by enriching myself, keeping the interview game, even if I can't schedule one in or something doesn't work out. It doesn't matter. I still have a way of keeping my skills fresh by even just listening to one.
You know what's funny, dude? I need to be listening to more podcasts, and actually working out at the gym is something that's allowed me just some time to do it, because doing as much as I do, producing other people's podcasts, working on my own, doing narration. I just finished a commercial for someone a couple of days ago, and I'm starting on another one here real soon. And just all of that stuff, it keeps my brain so involved that I don't really have time to listen to other people's shows. But I think that I need to start carving out more time to do that, because staying involved in your industry is what's really going to keep that, not just the motivation up, but also, I don't know, there's a learning aspect there. People are going to be doing things that you don't normally do, and you're going to hear them and you're going to go, oh, I liked that. Or people are going to do something, you're going to go, oh, I don't like that. I'm not going to do that anymore. It's just as beneficial to listen to a podcast where they're doing a bunch of mouth noises and ums and ahs that they haven't cut out, or in my case, a lot of times it's like they haven't equalized their track, they haven't compressed it, they didn't use the limiter, they didn't do any of that stuff. Like, they're just taking the raw audio and they're posting it. And listen, that works for some people, but normally the people that it works for are people who've been in radio for years, and so they know how to control their mouths and their voices and stuff like that. I'm still bad about it, undoubtedly. If you don't do any editing, dude, if you don't do any editing on this episode at all, you're going to hear my pauses. You're going to hear some ums. There's undoubtedly, I just did it right there. There's going to be some mouth noises and stuff like that.
And so thing is, I'm not going to edit that out. You know why? Because I see that as real conversation. The fact that usually I do my podcasts, like I just started kind of doing them over the phone and these types of things. But when I do my podcast, it's face to face, and I make sure you put your phone in the corner and you're away from technology. You're in the moment and you're in this real thing. But I've had podcasts where my buddy's sitting there drinking a beer or something. Next, he spills his beer, like, oh, fuck, it's on the podcast. I'm like, just let it roll. He's like, are you going to edit that out? I'm like, no. He's like, why? He's like, I don't think people are going to listen to that. I'm like, because it's real. It happened. Shit happens. You burp. You freaking cough, you do these types of things, you make, you breathe. It's like, am I going to condemn you for breathing when edit out your breathing? The first 2 episodes, I was cutting out ums and doing these types of things. And I'm like, not only is it a laziness factor is the reason why I stopped, was because it fucking cuts out some important shit. Like the fact that I'll be talking to my buddy and when he spills a beer, and then my one buddy goes, good fucking job, you dumbass. And it's like, but that creates a vibe for the audience. That creates something like, this is what you're picking up, okay? It's a conversation with these people. It's if you want to find these people funny, and I have these people are like, can you get them on again? I'm like, I'll talk to him. If he gets off work on time, it's all about that. It's just that some people are going to like that, some people aren't going to like that, but you don't want to worry about the people that aren't willing to listen to you or feel like that you should do this in a certain way, because once you start changing the idea and the thing of what you're getting out of it, you lose the true essence of why you started it in the first place.
I mean, I agree with that to a certain extent, but if you want to make it listenable to people, I think that some work needs to be done on it. Again, this is a form of art. This is a media that people can do however they want to do it, right? And it's not up to anyone else to decide how you're going to do things. And again, what you're doing is you're just talking to people and having conversations. I have a lot of people with products on my show, and they don't want their products to be shown in a bad light. And so if I have someone on that has a particular product that they're trying to push, then, I will go through with a much finer tooth comb, let me put it that way. If it's just my wife and I sitting down, she's a culinary genius, but if we're just sitting down and we're talking about a particular topic or something. So going back to, you'd mentioned that my latest episode was with the first autistic chef to ever make it to the World Food Championships, right? So I did that episode with my wife because she has some very unique and acute experience with that. Her brother has pretty severe autism. And so a lot of her growing up, she was seeing how food affected him, food allergies, bipolar, just stuff like that. And it all, the textures of the food, it affects the way he would react and interact with the world because he was just so acutely aware of things that we don't even notice about our food. Okay. The taste, the smells, the feels, the textures, the whatever. But sitting down and doing that episode, there were some ums that I left in there because I feel like it makes it sound more natural. I made some jokes. If you know what, do you know what a fig looks like? Not a fig Newton, but like the actual fruit fig.
Yeah.
So you know how it gets brown and wrinkly, right? So at a certain point, I said, we've got figs so big, it's starting to look like a tree full of Thanos. And it's just little stuff like that, where I throw out just these stupid little whatevers, and either they hit or they don't hit. And I leave them in, whenever I do a podcast with her, I always try to make her laugh, like belly snort laugh at least once in the episode. And that makes me feel good. And I usually get a pretty good response from those, but I don't do stuff like that if I have someone on, promoting some kind of a product. And so it's, knowing your audience, knowing when you can do it, where you can do it.
Yeah,
but like you said, you're trying to do something that's very Joe Rogan-ish. And so you're not going to cut out a whole bunch of stuff because you're trying to have very real down-to-earth conversations. Yeah. And I appreciate that very much. But I do just want to point out that not everybody can do a show like that.
Oh, for sure, man. And I'm not saying I'm doing anything like that either. That might be what I'm trying to just keep the conversation real, but I'm in no way a Joe Rogan. My podcast is in no way a Joe Rogan podcast, but it has bits and pieces that I structure myself from different podcasts and from other things. But the whole idea is I'm going to make this the way I want to make it. And if it's structured along something, like I said, we all need a structure, but we don't base ourselves off of that. If you go out in the tent thinking you're going to be some type of form of art or some type of creative thing that's just like somebody else, you're never going to nail it 100%. It's never the same thing. A piece of art can't be replicated even by the same artist 100%. It just doesn't happen. Sometimes everything is one of a kind. You're one of a kind, and it's all these types of things. And through life, we have our hit and misses. And like I've been very appreciative for you even giving me the opportunity of being on my podcast. And if I'm going to leave the world or all my audience and whoever's just out there listening with anything, it's just life's a hit or a miss. You have things, you have stuff you got to work on, you have stuff you could do better at, but you just got to realize if you start trying to change the way you intend things to be or the way you want things to be, the way your true image of something is, just because you're listening to other people telling you of how you should change it, you're never truly going to be satisfied, even if that finished product in taking their adjustments and stuff. And sometimes they're beneficial and they'll get it out there and get it exactly where you want it to be. But if you feel like it was a way that you changed it that kind of lost its true essence in the first place, and maybe that's not the right way to take it. Sometimes it's better to take the long ass road that takes years and years and years to develop than taking the quick one and the fastest way there.
Life is a journey, not a destination.
Damn, that was a good quote. Did you pull that out of a fortune cookie?
I wish. The last time I opened a fortune cookie, it told me the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Holy shit, that's a terrible fortune cookie. The last one I opened said, "Help, I'm trapped in a fortune cookie company."
Yeah, man.
I'm like, oh shit. Well, man, like I said, I
Yeah,
appreciate
buddy.
you being on my podcast, Andy. It was great talking to you, man. And let me tell you something. You're an amazing person, dude. And I believe anything that you're definitely, like you helped me a little bit too, just talking about life and kind of, it's nice to know that someone else kind of thinks around the same basis I do. And, you're out there doing what you're going to do, and you're going to do something. And I think it's awesome that you're helping people promote their podcasts and trying to be on the podcast and stuff. And whether you want to start your own business or whether you just feel like having your hands in multiple cookie jars, feeling like you can just take whatever you want, you know what I mean? You're gonna try and dive into so many different things at once. That's you, dude. And I believe if you really put your mind to anything, you can do anything you really want.
I agree with that, brother. Well, hey, it's been fantastic talking to you, man. And I look forward to seeing what you do in the future.